As he said this, I am not an angel, I asserted, and I will not be one till I die. I will be myself. Mr. Rochester, you must neither expect nor exact anything celestial of me, for you will not get it any more than I shall get it of you, which I do not at all anticipate. What do you anticipate of me? For a little while, you will perhaps be as you are now, a very little while. Then you will turn cool, and then you will be capricious, and then you will be stern, and I shall have much ado to please you. But when you get well used to me, you will perhaps like me again. Like me, I say, not love me. I suppose your love will effervesce in 6 months or less. I have observed in books written by men that period assigned as the farthest to which a husband's ardor extends. Yet, after all, as a friend and companion, I hope never to become quite distasteful to my dear master. Distasteful? And like you again? I think I shall like you again, and yet again. And I will make you confess I do not only like, but love you, with truth, fervor, constancy. Yet you are not capricious, sir? To women who please me only by their faces, I am the very devil when I find out they have neither souls nor hearts, when they open to me a perspective of flatness, triviality, and perhaps imbecility, coarseness and ill temper, but to the clever eye and eloquent tongue, to the soul made of fire, and the character that bends but does not break, at once supple and stable, tractable and consistent, I am ever tender and true. So he's saying, like, beauty does not matter to him if the character sucks, right? Have you ever experienced of such a character, sir? Did you ever love such a one? I love it now. But before me, if I indeed in any respect come up to your difficult standard, I never met your likeness. Jane, you please me, and you master me. You seem to submit, and I like the sense of pliancy you impart. And while I am twining the soft silken skein round my finger, do you guys like the yarn reference there? I do. It sends a thrill up my arm and to my heart. I am influenced, conquered, and the influence is sweeter than I can express, and the conquest I undergo has a witchery beyond any triumph I can win. Why do you smile, Jane? What does that inexplicable, that uncanny turn of your countenance mean? I was thinking, sir, you will excuse the idea, it was involuntary. I was thinking of Hercules and Samson with their charmers. So these stories allude to the charming of Hercules by various women, particularly the fatal charming by his wife, Deianira, and Samson by Delilah. So women who are like fatal loves for men, those are called femme fatales. So also she kind of teases him like men don't like women who think. Even though he hired her to be a governess, which means she has to think and learn. So yeah. You little elfish. Hush, sir. You don't talk very wisely just now, any more than those gentlemen acted very wisely. However, had they been married, they would no doubt by their severity as husbands have made up for their softness as suitors, and so will you, I fear. I wonder how you will answer me a year hence, should I ask a favor it does not suit your convenience or pleasure to grant. Ask me something now, Janet, the least thing. I desire to be entreated. Indeed I will, sir. I have my petition already. Speak, but if you look up and smile with that countenance, I shall swear concession before I know to what, and that will make a fool of me. Not at all, sir. I ask only this. Don't send for the jewels, and don't crown me with roses. You might as well put a border of gold lace round that plain pocket handkerchief you have there. I might as well gild refined gold. I know it. Your request is granted, then, for the time. I will remand the order I dispatched to my banker, but you have not yet asked for anything. You have prayed a gift to be withdrawn. Try again. Well then, sir, have the goodness to gratify my curiosity, which is much piqued on one point. He looked disturbed, which means, like, is she going to ask about the secret? What, he said hastily. Curiosity is a dangerous petition. It is well I have not taken a vow to accord every request. But there can be no danger in complying with this, sir. Utter it, Jane. But I wish that instead of a mere inquiry into, perhaps, a secret, it was a wish for half my estate. Now King Osurius, and that was a Persian king who was deceived by his usurious prime minister, nearly permitted a pogrom. The story is told in the book of Esther in the Bible. Do you think I am a Jew usurer, which is prejudiced, seeking good investment in land? I would much rather have all your confidence. You will not exclude me from your confidence if you admit me to your heart. You are welcome to all my confidence that is worth having, Jane. But for God's sake, don't desire a useless burden. Don't long for poison. Don't turn a downright Eve on my hands. So again, an allusion to Genesis. Why not, sir? You've just been telling me how much you like to be conquered and how pleasant over-persuasion is to you. Don't you think I had better take advantage of the confession and begin and coax and entreat, even cry and be sulky if necessary, for the sake of a mere essay of my power? I kind of like her flirtation. It's kind of funny, don't you think? I like it. Okay. I dare you to any such experiment. Encroach, presume, and the game is up. Is it, sir? You soon give in. How stern you look now. Your eyebrows have become as thick as my finger, and your forehead resembles what, in some very astonishing poetry, I once saw styled a blue-piled thunder loft. So that's an unidentified verse, but it could have been one of the Bronte's poems. That will be your married look, sir, I suppose. If that will be your married look, I, as a Christian, will soon give up the notion of consorting with a mere sprite or salamander. But what have you to ask thing? Out with it. So they're just bantering and having fun, which is, it's fun. There, you are less than civil now, and I like rudeness a great deal better than flattery. I'd rather be a thing than an angel. This is what I have to ask. Why did you take such pains to make me believe you wished to marry Miss Ingram? Is that all? Thank God it is no worse. And now he unknit his black brows, looked down, smiling at me, and stroked my hair as if well pleased at seeing a danger averted. I think I may confess, he continued, even although I should make you a little indignant, Jane, and I have seen what a fire spirit you can be when you are indignant. You glowed in the cool moonlight last night when you mutinied against fate and claimed your rank as my equal. Janet, by the by, it was you who made me the offer. Of course I did, but to the point if you please, sir. Miss Ingram? Well, I feigned courtship of Miss Ingram because I wished to render you as madly in love with me as I was with you, and I knew jealousy was the best ally I could call for in the furtherance of that end. Excellent. Now you are small, not one whit bigger than the end of my little finger. It was a burning shame and a scandalous disgrace to act in that way. Did you think nothing of Miss Ingram's feelings, sir? Her feelings were concentrated in one, or are concentrated in one, pride, and that needs humbling. Were you jealous, Jane? Never mind, Mr. Rochester. It is in no way interesting to you to know that. Answer me truly once more. Do you think Miss Ingram will not suffer from your dishonest coquetry? Won't she feel forsaken and deserted? Impossible. When I told you how she, on the contrary, deserted me, the idea of my insolvency cooled, or rather extinguished, her flame in a moment, so she was just after the money. You have a curious, designing mind, Mr. Rochester. I'm afraid your principles on some points are eccentric. My principles were never trained, Jane. They may have grown a little awry for want of attention. Once again, seriously, may I enjoy the great good that has been vouchsafed to me without fearing that anyone else is to suffer the bitter pain I myself felt a while ago? That you may, my good little girl. There is not another being in the world has the same pure love for me as yourself, for I lay that pleasant unction to my soul, Jane, a belief in your affection. I turned my lips to the hand that lay on my shoulder. I loved him very much, more than I could trust myself to say, more than words have power to express. Ask something more, he said presently. It is my delight to be entreated and to yield. I was again ready with my request. Communicate your intentions to Mrs. Fairfax, sir. She saw me with you last night in the hall, and she was shocked. Give her some explanation before I see her again. It pains me to be misjudged by so good a woman. Go to your room and put on your bonnet, he replied. I mean you to accompany me to Millcote this morning, and while you prepare for the drive, I will enlighten the old lady's understanding. Did she think, Janet, you had given the world for love and considered it well lost? So he's alluding to they had a home run last night. That's what he's alluding to, which is very flirtatious and definitely improper. I believe she thought I had forgotten my station, and yours, sir. Station. Your station is in my heart, and on the necks of those who would insult you, now or hereafter. Go. I was soon dressed, and when I heard Mr. Rochester quit Mrs. Fairfax's parlor, I hurried down to it. The old lady had been reading her morning portion of Scripture. Perfect timing, right? Just to, I'm, getting closer to God, and here I'm going to learn about the governess and the master getting married. Not really proper, but oh well. The lesson of the day. Her Bible lay open before her, and her spectacles were upon it. Her occupation, suspended by Mr. Rochester's announcement, seemed now forgotten. Her eyes, fixed on the blank wall opposite, expressed the surprise of a quiet mind stirred by unwonted tidings. Seeing me, she roused herself. She made a sort of effort to smile, and framed a few words of congratulation. But the smile expired, and the sentence was abandoned and unfinished. She put up her spectacles, shut the Bible, and pushed her chair back from the table. "I feel so astonished," she began. "I hardly know what to say to you, Miss Eyre. I have surely not been dreaming, have I? Sometimes I half fall asleep when I am sitting alone and fancy things that have never happened. It has seemed to me more than once that when I have been in a doze, that my dear husband, who died 15 years since, has come in and sat down by my side, and that I have even heard him call me by my name, Alice, as he used to do. Now, can you tell me whether it is actually true that Mr. Rochester has asked you to marry him? Don't laugh at me, but I really thought he came in here 5 minutes ago and said that in a month you would be his wife." "He has said the same thing to me," I replied. "He has? Do you believe him? Have you accepted him?" "Yes." She looked at me bewildered. I could not have thought it. He is a proud man. All the Rochesters were proud, and his father at least liked money. He, too, has always been called careful. "He means to marry you?" "He tells me so." She surveyed my whole person. In her eyes I read that they had found no charm powerful enough to solve the enigma. "It passes me," she continued, "but no doubt it is true since you say so. How it will answer I cannot tell. I really don't know. Equality of position and fortune is often advisable in such cases, and there are 20 years of difference in your ages. He might almost be your father." So she's basically saying, like, even if you guys love each other, you still should have equal station. So you should be a gentleman's daughter, and you should have roughly the equal amount of money to him. So there's that aspect of marriage right now. "No, indeed," Mrs. Fairfax exclaimed, I nettled. "He is nothing like my father. No one who saw us together would suppose it for an instant. Mr. Rochester looks as young, and is as young, as some men at 25. "Is it really for love he is going to marry you?" she asked. I was so hurt by her coldness and skepticism that the tears rose to my eyes. "I am sorry to grieve you," pursued the widow, "but you are so young and so little acquainted with men. I wish to put you on your guard. It is an old saying that all is not gold that glitters, and in this case I do fear there will be something found to be different from what either you or I expect." This is like a horrible thing to say. Like, they're friends. She's the first person Jane gets to tell that she's in love with the man she's going to marry, and she's being told, be on your guard, not all that glitters is gold. So, like, does this change how we view Mrs. Fairfax, or is she foreshadowing something? We shall continue. "Why? Am I a monster?" I said. "Is it impossible that Mr. Rochester should have a sincere affection for me?" "No, you are very well, and much improved of late, and Mr. Rochester, I dare say, is fond of you. I have always noticed that you were sort of a pet of his. There are times when, for your sake, I have been a little uneasy at his marked preference, and have wished to put you on your guard, but I did not like to suggest even the possibility of wrong. I knew such an idea would shock, perhaps offend you, and you were so discreet, and so thoroughly modest and sensible. I hoped you might be trusted to protect yourself. Last night I cannot tell you what I suffered when I sought all over the house and could find you nowhere, nor the master either, and then, at 12 o'clock, saw you come in with him." "Well, never mind that now," I interrupted impatiently. It is enough that all was right." "I hope all will be right in the end," said she. "But believe me, you cannot be too careful. Try and keep Mr. Rochester at a distance. Distrust yourself as well as him. Gentlemen in his station are not accustomed to marry their governesses." I was growing truly irritated. Happily, Adele ran in. Let me go to Millcote too," she cried. "Mr. Rochester won't, though there is so much room in the new carriage. Beg him to let me go, mademoiselle." "That I will, Adele," and I hastened away with her, glad to quit my gloomy monitress. The carriage was ready. They were bringing it round to the front, and my master was pacing the pavement, Pilot following him backwards and forwards. "Adele may accompany us, may she not, sir?" I told her no, I'll have no brats, I'll have only you. Do let her go, Mr. Rochester, if you please. It would be better." "Not it. She will be a restraint." "A restraint for what? What is going to happen in this carriage?" He was quite peremptory, both in look and voice. The chill of Mrs. Fairfax's warnings and the damp look of her doubts were upon me. Something of unsubstantiality and uncertainty had beset my hopes. I half lost the sense of power over him. I was about mechanically to obey him without further remonstrance, but as he helped me into the carriage, he looked at my face. "What is the matter?" he asked. "All the sunshine is gone. Do you really wish the bairn to go? Will it annoy you if she is left behind?" I would far rather she went, sir." "Then off for your bonnet and back like a flash of lightning," he cried to Adele. She obeyed him with what speed she might. "After all, a single morning's interruption will not matter much," said he, "when I mean shortly to claim you, your thoughts, conversation, and company for life." Adele, when lifted in, commenced kissing me by way of expressing her gratitude for my intercession. She was instantly stowed away into a corner on the other side of him. She then peeped round to where I sat. So stern a neighbor was too restrictive. To him in his present fractious mood, she dared whisper no observations, nor ask of him any information. "Let her come to me," I entreated. "She will perhaps trouble you, sir. There's plenty of room on this side." He handed her over as if she had been a lapdog. "I'll send her to school yet," he said, but now he was smiling. Adele heard him and asked if she was to go to school. "Sans, mademoiselle?" "Yes," he replied. "Absolutely sans, mademoiselle, for I'm to take mademoiselle to the moon, and there I shall seek a cave in one of the white valleys among the volcano tops, and mademoiselle shall live with me there, and only me." "She will have nothing to eat. You will starve her," observed Adele. "I shall gather manna for her morning and night, and the plains and hillsides in the moon are bleached with manna, Adele." "She will want to warm herself. What will she do for a fire?" "Fire rises out of lunar mountains. When she is cold, I'll carry her up to a peak and lay her down on the edge of a crater." "Oh, I don't know the French."
3 strands left. I'm assuming you have to do something different.
Yeah. "She'll be uncomfortable there, and her clothes will wear out. How can she get new ones?" Let's see. "Hem," said he. "What would you do, Adele?" "Cudgel her brains for an expedient?" How would a white or pink cloud answer for a gown, do you think? And could one cut a pretty enough scarf out of a rainbow?" "She is far better as she is," concluded Adele, after musing some time. "Besides, she would get tired of living with only you and the moon. If I were mademoiselle, I would never consent to go with you." "She has consented. She has pledged her word." "But you can't get her there. There is no road to the moon." "It is all air, and neither you nor she can fly." "Adele, look at that field." We were now outside Thornfield Gates and bowling lightly along the smooth road to Millcote, where the dust was well laid by the thunderstorm, and where the low hedges, and lofty timber trees on each side glistened green and rain refreshed. "In that field, Adele, I was walking late one evening about a fortnight since, the evening of the day you helped me make hay in the orchard meadows, and as I was tired with raking swaths, I sat down to rest me on a stile, and there I took out a little book and a pencil, and began to write about a misfortune that befell me a long time ago, and I wished for happy days to come. I was riding away very fast, though daylight was fading from the leaf, when something came up the path and stopped 2 yards off me. I looked at it. It was a little thing with a veil of gossamer on its head. I beckoned it to come near me. It stood at my knee. I never spoke to it, and it never spoke to me in words, but I read its eyes, and it read mine, and our speechless colloquy was to this effect. It was a fairy and come from Elfland, it said, and its errand was to make me happy. I must go with it out of the common world to a lonely place, such as the moon, for instance, and it nodded its head towards her horn, rising over Hay Hill. It told me of the alabaster cave and silver vale where we might live. I said I should like to go, but reminded it, as you did me, that I had no wings to fly. "Oh," returned the fairy, "that does not signify. Here is a talisman that will remove all difficulties." She held out a pretty gold ring. "Put it," she said, "on the 4th finger of my left hand, and I am yours, and you are mine, and we shall leave earth and make our own heaven yonder." She nodded again at the moon. "The ring, Adele, is in my breeches pocket, under the disguise of a sovereign, but I mean soon to change it to a ring again." "But what has mademoiselle to do with it? I don't care for the fairy. You said it was mademoiselle you would take to the moon." "Mademoiselle is a fairy," he said, whispering mysteriously, whereupon I told her not to mind his badinage, and she, on her part, evinced a fund of genuine French skepticism, denominating Mr. Rochester un vrai menteur, a real liar, and assuring him that she made no account whatever of his contes de fées, of his fairy tales. And that, I'm going to read this in English. Furthermore, there were no fairies, and all the same, were there any, she was sure they would never appear to him, nor ever give him rings, or offer to live with him in the moon. The hour spent at Millcote was somewhat a harassing one to me. Mr. Rochester obliged me to go to a certain silk warehouse. There I was ordered to choose half a dozen dresses. I hated the business. I begged leave to defer it. No, it should be gone through with now. By dint of entreaties, expressed in energetic whispers, I reduced the half dozen to 2. These, however, he vowed he would select himself. With anxiety, I watched his eye rove over the gay stores. He fixed on a rich silk of the most brilliant amethyst dye and a superb pink satin. I told him in a new series of whispers that he might as well buy me a gold gown and a silver bonnet at once. I should certainly never venture to wear his choice. With infinite difficulty, for he was as stubborn as a stone, I persuaded him to make an exchange in favor of a sober black satin and pearl gray silk. It might pass for the present, he said, but he would yet see me glittering like a parterre. Let's see. Glad I was to get him out of the silk warehouse, and then out of a jeweler's shop. The more he bought, the more my cheek burned with a sense of annoyance and degradation. As we re-entered the carriage and I sat back feverish and fagged, I remembered what, in the hurry of events, dark and bright, I had wholly forgotten, the letter of my uncle, John Eyre, to Mrs. Reed, his intention to adopt me and make me his legatee. It would indeed be a relief, I thought, if I had ever so small an independency. I can never bear being dressed like a doll by Mr. Rochester, or sitting like a second Danae with the golden shower falling daily around me. I will write to Madeira the moment I get home, and tell my Uncle John I am going to be married, and to whom. If I had but a prospect of one day bringing Mr. Rochester an accession of fortune, I could better endure to be kept by him now. And somewhat relieved by this idea, which I failed not to execute that day, I ventured once more to meet my master's and lover's eye, with the most pertinaciously sought mine, though I averted both face and gaze. He smiled, and I thought his smile was such as a sultan might, in a blissful and fond moment, bestow on a slave his gold and gems had enriched. I crushed his hand, which was ever hunting mine, vigorously, and thrust it back to him red with the passionate pressure. Shh. You need not look in that way, I said. If you do, I'll wear nothing but my old Lowood frocks to the end of the chapter. I'll be married in this lilac gingham. You may make a dressing gown for yourself out of the pearl gray silk, and an infinite series of waistcoats out of the black satin. He chuckled, rubbed his hands. Oh, it is rich to see and hear her, he exclaimed. Is she original? Is she piquant? I would not exchange this one little English girl for all the Grand Turk's whole seraglio, gazelle eyes, horny forms, and all.